Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and welcome to Season 20. We are now covering the album Sonic Origami by Uriah Heep. Man, we've done a lot of shows, haven't we? This album took a little while to come together. The last album, Sea of Light, came out in 1995. This album did not come out until 1998. Don't know why. That could have been extensive touring, vacations, break, situations, who knows. But in any case, it did come out in 1998. Before we get into the first song on the album, which is called Between Two Worlds, I want to talk a little bit about the album cover. This one's a little perplexing to me. It's basically solid black with four sets of faces. Just the front outline of a face almost looks like it was styrofoam or something. They remind me of those old styrofoam heads, but just the very front line, I like the outline of it. Except for the one in back. The one in back actually looks a little bit thicker, but I think that's just because it's smaller. But there's only four of them, and there's five people in the band, so that kind of struck me as odd. Everything is a duplicate face, so on the left of it is the blue, and on the right of it is the sort of gold or maybe like a honey mustard color. And they just get bigger as they go forward. Each set does, but again, there's only four, and there's five people in the band, so that kind of struck me as odd. The font for the band's name and the album title are so dark on the CD, you could barely see them, actually. I don't know what the album cover, the actual like LP looked like at the time, because we were still doing albums back then. But they're really dark. So the Uriah Heep word is just a very standard font. The Sonic Origami font I actually really like, but again, it's just very hard to see. And of course, you know, when you're looking in the jewel case or looking through the jewel case, you've got those two little notches at the bottom, which cut right into the album title. So the placement doesn't really work for that as much as it would have worked on the actual album itself. The rest of it's just flat black. So I don't know. I mean, to me, it's not a very exciting album cover. I think the title of the album gave the artists a lot to work with. I mean, they could have taken pictures of instruments that were on paper and folded them into something, or maybe they could have folded the paper into the instruments themselves. They could have done a lot of different things, but I'm not really sure how it relates to the album. I don't really understand what the concept is. And so it's a little bit disappointing to me. I mean, especially coming after Sea of Light, which has this absolutely beautiful, stunning cover of a place that I physically would love to be in, you know, with these giant floating rocks and the water and the bonsai trees and everything else. And then you have a very image-oriented title like Sonic Origami, and the artist comes up with this. Now, to be fair, there could have been a lot of things behind it. There could have been a different direction that was taken at the last minute. There could have been a miscommunication. There could have been a time factor. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities as to why this was used. For me, thinking of some of the album covers that Uriah Heep has had, this is, I would say, the weakest. It also reminds me of, and I'm pretty sure it was a Rolling Stones, maybe like a best of. I couldn't find it on the internet. I was trying to hunt it down earlier today, but it basically, the album, the LP had, the regular LP. And then on top of it, there were just a few face pages. Like it was almost like a little bit thicker of a construction paper, not quite poster board, but it had the texture more of construction paper. And they were just silhouettes of people's heads. And, you would flip them, and it would just be the color of the construction paper. There was no detail of the face or anything like that. But it was kind of like lined up to where you could see them all because of their positioning. And that kind of reminds me of this a little bit, only because they're sequential, like front to back. But apart from that, yeah, it's just a really weird album cover to me. But, that's not the important thing. The album cover is basically just to draw people in. At the time, it would have been when you were at the record store oh, that cover looks interesting. What's that? And when you had an artist like Roger Dean who would paint these beautiful landscapes or really intriguing photos or drawings, I should say, that's going to draw attention. This, honestly, I would have flipped right by it. And with the title of the band being so dark, I probably wouldn't have even realized it was a Uriah Heep album. I mean, obviously, if I'm in an area where it's alphabetical, it's going to be under Uriah Heep. But a lot of times, they had display albums along the wall to let you know about new releases. They had, certain store displays up in the front. And so, if it had just been sitting there in one of those displays and I didn't happen to look up Uriah Heep that day at the record store, I probably wouldn't have even acknowledged it, to be honest. So it is a little disappointing, especially, like I said, coming after Sea of Light, but it's what we got. The album cover is hardly important in comparison to the album. What's important is the music, and that's why bands make albums, to share the music that they've created with their audience, with hopefully a growing audience. Hopefully they're doing things that their audience will like, and maybe will gain them new fans, more radio play, that kind of thing. Radio play obviously isn't as predominant nowadays as it was back then because of the streaming services. There's really no need to wait for the radio unless you're in your car, and a lot of people don't have music on their phone. They don't have, unlimited internet that they can pay for just listening to music off their phone whenever they drive around. Not everybody has an iPod or MP3 player. So some people do still listen to the radio. I don't go out very often, but when I am out, sometimes if I'm just taking a quick trip to pick up groceries or something, a lot of times I won't bring my iPod with me. I'll just say, well, I've got 5 stations programmed into the radio plus the iPod station. I'm bound to find something I know. And of course, they're mostly programmed to oldie stations because that's the music that I grew up with. That's nostalgic and enjoyable for me. And I hear an incredible amount of Whitesnake being played. And it's almost always the song Here I Go Again. It's so funny, the little bit I venture out of the house these days. And almost every time I hear Here I Go Again by Whitesnake. So hopefully they're taking care of David Coverdale really well on that. It'd be nice to hear some Easy Livin' or something, but there's so many, there's only so much that I'm going to hear in my way to and back from the store because almost everything that I would need is within about 5 minutes of me. So I don't have to venture out a whole lot. But in any case, thinking about, 1998, radios were very important. That's how a lot of bands got fans, So on the radio, they would have been okay. But yeah, in the record store, absolutely not. And, it all comes down to the music and how it was promoted and that sort of thing. Whether people talked about it, shared it with their friends, said, hey, you guys got to check out this new album by Uriah Heep. So in any case, here's where we are. We're at the song now. We're at the first song, season 20, Sonic Origami, and the song is Between Two Worlds. Well, that would have been a great concert opening too. The really dark, creepy sounds at the beginning. Love the Hammond kicking in, or maybe it was the Nord by this point. I'm not sure. But it sounds great. And then a great, powerful riff saying, hey, we're back. We've got a new album. We're exploding right off the top with some powerful rock and roll. I really love it.
You're not the only one amongst the saints and sinners. There are those that we can see and those no longer with us. To take that walk again with someone you were close to on stage in the other world tonight.
First thing I noticed right off the bat, this is a fantastic mix on this song so far. The panning is fantastic. I'm hearing some of the organ over to the left. I'm hearing the rhythm guitar in slightly to the left, and I'm hearing the other guitar to the right. The kick and snare are slightly to the left and right. And then we have the bass, which is slightly to the left. Vocals are coming through crystal clear. It's like everything's finally got that space that I've been dying for the last few seasons. You know, it's panned out very beautifully so that everything can be heard. The song sounds rich and full. I suspect that there's a couple other keyboard tracks in there as well, but it really sounds good. The snare has a nice snap to it also. Yeah, I thought so. Now I'm hearing the organ too a little bit in the right ear. So I think that's another organ track that was laid down.
And there are many who will say it's speculation. We need to focus on the sleeping generation. The healing vision that extends beyond the pain will take you there and back again.
There's some really nice notes there being played by Trevor on bass. Again, I didn't mention the lineup. It's the same lineup that we've had for the last couple of albums. Probably the most cohesive lineup that we've had in Uriah Heep since the beginning at this point. But very, very just great hard driving song. Love what Trevor's playing here. Bernie's voice is just as good as ever. You know, for being away from the studio with Heep for 3 years. He may have done some other stuff during that time. But in any case, really strong vocal, as always, putting everything he's got into it. Just love this song. Really love the backing vocals here. They sound nice and thick, but it also sounds like we're getting a little bit back to that high harmony again. Not the real high harmony, but a little bit higher than what we've heard over the last couple of albums. Sounds really good, really complements the song. Yeah, I have to say this is a great way to start a rock and roll album, you know, with a really good up-tempo, hard driving number that kind of just says we're back, you know, especially considering that the last album was 3 years ago. It's good to set the tone for what you should expect from this album on the first song. And of course, I say that I don't know where the other songs are going yet, so they may not be as hard driving as this one. But for a rock band to come out with an album and really just place their stamp on it and say, this is who we are. And I think they've done a great job in this song with that.
I can remember you were no stranger as you came to me.
Well, showing that they have not lost their ability to do interesting and dramatic transitions, we have this right here from the slowing down drum roll that we've talked about before, right into those really nice sounds. I'm not sure if that was a synthesizer or an actual voice that was very phased out, but in any case, it sounded really good. And then we're coming into this great vocal delivery again from Bernie in a different style of the song.
And in that moment, between two worlds, I saw the furthest star exploding all around you.
And of course, right after I talk about how great it is to open the album with a hard driving song, they do this breakdown into a much slower tempo and much more gentle feel in the song. A little more abstract, but really still good. I mean, I love the backing vocals here. I love the way Bernie sings when he's singing over something a little more gently too. You know, he's very good at the power, but he's also really good at laying back and emoting as a vocalist. Very talented guy.
And through the journey, you spoke in silence and you made it clear. Walk in peace now. Let you touch me, revealing all upon your way inside the burning fountain of time.
Man, I really dig what Trevor's playing through this section, and also the sound of his bass. It's got a little bit of grit on this album, and or at least on this song, and it sounds fantastic. Love what he's playing. He's being very adventurous, what we would typically expect from a Uriah Heep bass player. So I dig that. I love the piano that came in a little bit earlier, just a little bit, and now it's back. The guitars are working with that beautifully, just playing together in a beautiful unison. This is a really, really well-crafted song. Going into the guitar solo, that was probably one of the best transitions I've heard from them yet. Just very unexpected, very, very interesting. And of course, a great guitar solo took the song in a bit of a different direction again. And now we're back to another vocal section. That was a very quick solo, but one that was very tasteful.
The one we share each day, the same dimension, just a heartbeat away. In every part of you, there's so much exploration. Out of the edge of space and time.
We're getting a little more traditional. Lee is returning to his roots, playing those crash cymbals along with the snare drum instead of just the bass drum. It gives it so much more power, especially when you're doing those quick repeats like he is in this song. Backing vocals coming in, just sounds great. Well, it had a little bit more of a cinematic vibe there in that last section. Another great long solo from Mick. I'm so glad we got a second solo and a much bigger one at that. Really fantastic. Great playing on that. Really energetic. And I think I heard a little bit of wah pedal, but I definitely heard some whammy bar in that one. And that just kept the song going. But then this twist with it being a little more, almost like you could picture something on screen happening with the music, those changes with the drum rolls, changing the scene. And then it was a good fade, and then it just kind of dropped out at the last second. It was almost like the engineer got tired of fading. And he's like, okay, the song's over, and just dropped the fader down to 0. Because it was actually going at a very nice pace, that fade was, and then it was just done. So that was a little bit strange. But apart from that, man, great album opener. Really good and powerful, lots of twists and changes, saying, it's not just us returning with a hard rock album, it's Uriah Heep. We've got changes in our songs, we've got things that you'll never see coming, things you wouldn't expect, and we're going to do it unapologetically, as they should. So I think that it's a great song. I think it's a great opener. Definitely one that I'll listen to again and again. I really dig it. I hope you guys did too. That is our first episode for season 20. Season 20 already. And, I'll leave it up to you guys what you think of the album cover. Pull it up on Google. Maybe you have the album. Look at the album cover. If you have the LP, you'll be able to see that detail a little bit better. I'll leave it up to you guys what you think. But musically, I think we're off to a damn good start, don't you? We'll see you guys on the next episode. Cheers! Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!